immigrants in various countries, and at the same time, what migration, some people define it to be what migration is really all about. So, Prof, definitely, as time goes on, we'll be laying emphasis on those issues, on different topics. So, it's really, really a very wide range that Prof will be touching to this evening, and we want you to tell your friends, share this video, invite your friends to join us. And this is opportunity that comes once in a while. And he's a prof and the CEO, which is the founder of Mediation, World Mediation Organization that you have the whole world. So I'm really, really blessed to have him around today. So let me just say in 5 minutes, definitely in 22:10, we will be having Prof to start explaining one or two things and giving us that knowledge that most of the things that we need to know about this evening that are regarding migration. Thank you. So don't forget to leave your questions with us. And okay. Thanks each and everyone for joining. Don't forget to ask us your questions and at the same time give your opinion on what you think about migration. The topic still remains: are migrants the source of economic growth to their host countries, or the source or economic backwardness, as some scholars defined it to be? So you can leave your informations, your point of view, your own opinion. You can comment it below by telling us from your own perspective what you think on migration, if really they are liability to host countries, or they are really, really a source of economic upliftment, as some scholars also happens to define it. Okay, meanwhile, I think while we in the few 3 minutes, I think we can, let me give Prof one of our African Energy, which is, it's a very popular song in Africa. He's a legend. Most of the songs that I normally play, he's a legend. Actually, he happens to die many years back, and his songs still, lives in us. He's actually the founder of Afrobeat music. That, yeah, it's one of the biggest, currently one of the biggest trend songs, gel in Africa, which they call Afrobeat. So I will just give you a tips of the songs. So while we wait. So as we promised, and thank you guys for staying tuned. And we don't really have much time to waste, because Prof is a busy guy, he's a busy man, and it's an opportunity that we have here today. Definitely, to go straight, I would want Prof to actually please tell us yourself, and at the same time, welcome to Opinion Boss. It's a great opportunity that we have you here today. Um, we would like to actually hear from the horse's mouth, and as you tell us, just a brief of some introduction of the evening.
Well, Timothy, first of all, I would like to express my gratitude to you for having me today in your show, and even more for enabling a critical dialogue under the banner of the Opinion Box now for several years. And to me, it is very important to underline the value of your work right in the beginning. And once again, as I previously did it with my comments during other shows, because what you do in your shows is actually you're offering priceless educational content of a first-hand and non-filtered character. And thereby, you offer something that we nowadays in our global society really, really need. And talking about education and this educational aspect, it is really directly connected to today's topic. So what you do in your shows is quite obvious. You touch topics that definitely need to be discussed in order to create transparency and understanding. And this is why I'm very happy to support this movement. And as I previously said, I'm very happy to be with you here today.
Thank you, thank you. It's really the pleasure is mine, and we're really grateful to have you around today. It's a great honor, I must say. Thanks so much. So without wasting time, I just want to actually share it from the screen to let the people know actually what we're having and the topic for this evening, which actually have to do with here is the topic. So the topic remains on do you think, before we come here, which will be a question on the next, are migrants source of economic growth or economic backwardness to their host countries, which have to do with maybe, for example, here in Italy or in Germany or even in America, where we still have some every part of the world. So do you think, in your own opinion, migrants are instruments to grow economy in their host country, or they are actually there as economic liability or economic dependent in rendering underdevelopment to such countries? So without wasting time, this actually will bring us to the next question that we'll be asking our Prof this evening, which goes on: do you think proper information on migration are being channeled by the right people? So we want Prof to answer that.
Well, Timothy, nowadays, I believe at least, people often mix up being occupied with a cell phone and having a real exchange and a real benefit out of a proper conversation. So what happens is that the majority of people runs the risk to get lost in an ocean of filtered, non-confirmed, often biased, and even fictive data. And being victim to such a misleading information stream causes often misconceptions and even frustration, and possibly also at the end of a migrant's journey.
Oh, okay. That's a great. It's a great. You made a great point there regarding not rendering the proper informations and the mixed information that most migrants are actually facing these days. So that actually, without wasting time, that also will bring us to the next question, which have to do with what's your perspective on migration? What do you think migration is all about?
Well, this is, as we previously discussed, Timothy, it's a very, very complex topic. And I really can only talk about my perspective, right? So migration to me means and describes a process of difficulties, of decision-making, and endless challenges, you know. To me, it is about the pain to leave one's comfort zone, namely our home, where we have our loved ones, where we were raised in a specific cultural setting, and where we understand the language even beyond the level of proper wording. What I mean is we understand our cultural and language background on a level that is really between the lines. And I think this is also very key when it comes to a point of identifying one's a cultural setting. So, and background. So migration further means to me, or deals with points like the assumptions and the hope of what a person might find in an alien country that at this point still is the comfort zone of someone else.
Oh, that's great. So that is you really touch it so much, you know. Which the fact is that migration is, you know, with one leaving his comfort, you know, his comfort zone, and in having a hope like, okay, I just want to relocate to another place, having this hope that there could be a change of what I expect or what I'm expecting or what I could not get in my comfort zone, then trying to achieve it in the other way around. So we don't really have much time to waste. Okay, good evening. Don't forget to leave your comment. You can as well share your ideas with us, and you can share your opinions with us. You can as well ask questions regarding migration. So, Prof, let's also go straight to the point. Let me also just try to make it clear here. To the issue we have already talks about the next one, which have to do you think on migration, and you have also laid emphasis on your perspective on what migrant or migration is all about. Now, this brings our question to this very question, like, okay, because we have also find out that in the society today, things are very difficult, you know, with somebody, just like what you said, relocating from one zone, you know, from one comfort zone to the other, you know, in having a hope and aspiration, like what I don't have at this moment in this comfort zone, maybe I can get it somewhere. Now, going there, they have these challenges with the different backgrounds and so many other things. This brings our question to this brings our next question into board on point on the issues that have to do with how can migrants be included in a society, and how can they integrate?
Well, I think to make this process of migration a successful one, we may agree that if possible, it would really be of great benefit to be able to do proper research on what shall become our new home, and best before starting the proper journey of becoming a migrant. It is definitely not a good advice or not enough at all to listen to folk tales like houses and food, or even a fixed salary will be granted to every new arrival. And because this is actually what happened when Germany, for example, or even Italy received lots of refugees. In the northern African sections, lots of tales were just communicated, and people arrived here at this country totally being out of their minds, because nothing that was told to them back home was reality, right?
Yeah.
So additionally, from doing this research of comparing the possible achievements, it is also very important, I think, that the person double checks if the individual has sufficient energy, to truly master the challenges that you also mentioned right now, like learning a new language, to have sufficient will to also proactively integrate into a new culture, and to establish a basis that may also serve one's children to have a proper and fruitful future.
That's it. That's it. So, Prof, actually make it understand that, you leaving your comfort zone to another place. There are bound to be challenges, and one of these challenges is actually the language. Like you living, moving from one place to the other, where you understand vividly where that this set of people have different cultural background, different languages, and so on. So if you really want to survive, if you really want to succeed, more and more, you should expect most of these challenges, and you should be prepared to overcome them. So thank you on that, Prof. And listeners, don't forget, you can swear leave your questions below, and we will have them answered by Prof in the house. And this brings our next question, which have to do with we still on regarding migration, and we still on regarding integration. Now there is always these perspective differences, just like what you said. Somebody living one place to the other, there is always that challenges that, okay, I'm going to a new background. There is bound to be challenges that I might find it difficult to overcome, but I should be prepared for it. And most of these challenges, at the end of the day, most of the people who could not prepare for these challenges, or who didn't prepare for these challenges, find it actually an unbalanced ground. And at the end of the day, it rendered another point of opinion to the public. Like, now, why is Mr. A acting this way and is moving in the right direction, integrating, and Mr. B is on the other part of the story? So for me to actually make it clear what I'm trying to say here, this bringing my next question, which have to do with how can one, change the perspective of people, in host country, which have to do with the citizen of that country, and how can one, which is the migrant, how can they be able to change the perspective of the host countries?
Well, Timothy, I think understanding is key to many aspects of understanding, and communication is key to many aspects of the topic of migration. And I truly think that it is necessary to try to reflect on the citizen's perspective as well. So we should try to find out what migration or immigration may mean to them. Because more often than not, new arriving persons cause fear and make citizens raise many questions. And actually, what I believe is that when we get to the point where citizens raise questions, it might be the best evidence that local or national politicians did not do their homework, like to present a concept of sustainable integration and of peaceful future coexistence. So, you know, citizens, it's like storytelling. You know, it's like selling a story. People want to get information. They want to believe in a bigger vision. So what happened, for example, more often than not in Germany, is that people arrived and there was no communication. Last time when we had lots of refugees here, I really think it was a problem because everybody talked about integration, but nobody talked about giving them the chance to get back to their countries. When there was this war several years back in Yugoslavia, for example, many people from Yugoslavia came to Germany. So the children went to school here, people had work permissions. And when the war was over, you know, they were able to get back to their countries because there's no home, no place like home, right?
Yeah.
So, but we talk about migration, right? Not about being a refugee. So the setting might be a bit different. But what I want to say is that information towards the community of the citizens is very important. And maybe this is also done best by explaining them that emerged and well integrated cultural diversity can serve as a solid source of social resistance that also may prevent political extremist movements and actions in future. So it's about communication, understanding, and bringing people together.
Thank you so much. So definitely thank you for answering, Prof. And don't forget, listeners, you can also leave your questions below. We have them answered later. So somebody was asking, what's your opinion on migration? So which we actually maybe later in the day before closing for this evening, we can as well have a reflection on what your perspective on migration is. So without wasting time, just bring in our next question, which have to do with, because now we're talking about changing the perspective of the people, which is the host country, okay, the citizen of the host country. And one of the instruments in changing that perspective is what we will be asking you next, which have to do with on your perspective on being a mediator, because you have an organization that have world mediation organizations, and you have raised projects in both in Asia, in all around of the world, even in Africa. And this brings my questions to you. Now we're still talking about from the beginning what migration is all about, how migration, how integration, how important is integration to a migrant, and how that can change the perspective of the people, which is the host countries, which have to do with the citizen of the people living in that country. And now, the next question is, how important is a mediator in the life of a migrant?
Well, first of all, of course, the mediator and the migrant, they should connect in an interpersonal level. So it would be great if they find this level of working together and of exchanging. So this communication setting is really key to it. But basically, I think a mediator or someone who works between the lines or follows some sort of middle way can initiate dialogue and raise awareness by questioning. So we get back to this point of communication, right? Yeah. Creating contact, raising awareness, and using the language in order to question, to create dialogue. And this dialoguing may not only take place between the citizens and the new arrivals in order to make contact and to learn about the other parties' perspectives, but also within each of these groups in order to make people reflect, to make them also learn from their own questions that they raise, to communicate their fears and hopes at the same time, and to play around a bit, with the perspectives, also get to know the other party's perspective, not only from the citizen side, but also within the group. So summing it up, a mediator who works more likely as a person for social orientation can prepare people before starting the proper journey, being a migrant. And a mediator can also build bridges of understanding between the parties, as mentioned. And finally, I think this is also very interesting. The mediator can be a helping hand to both parties in order to make them learn a new specific role, such as being the welcoming party and being the arriving party. And I think it's really always key to try to analyze both sides of the coin and somehow try to bring them together in order to have exactly this exchange of perspectives.
Thanks so much. So you really key make a sound point on what mediator being able to be like that bridge, that bridge between both parties, which are between the migrant and we can even say maybe the government or an association, which is the refugee welcoming associations or sectors. So just like we have another question which have to come with Mr. Gabriel Wangwe, which he said, kindly ask Doc if he thinks the government are doing enough to integrate migrants in Germany. But before you go to that, I would just want you to answer the question that I will be asking together with what Gabi asked you here. Now, this have to do with politics surrounding migrant, okay? Without channeling the right tactics in sincerity, in rendering that atmosphere for migrant. Like, okay, we have politics that recently politics surrounding migrant in different countries without really giving that sincere, tactics in being able to promote, migrant or building migrant in the right direction that will become maybe economically dependent, or we become an instrument for national development. What is your idea? What's your take on that? And at the same time, you can as well have your opinion on what you think about Germany.
Yeah, well, in order to know, or in order to get to know this complex situation, doesn't we do not have to minimize now the question, first of all, to Germany, but I think the interesting part of the integrating work of migrants really differs from country to country. And this is also due to the cultural differences and so on. So first of all, I think it would be great if we could see more exchange on the governmental level, so that, for example, Germany checks how France is handling this question. France may maybe learn from Switzerland and so on. So first of all, I think, Mr. Gavi, there will never be enough to be done, because the stories of migrants are very diverse, and